I took the red pill or whichever one it was. But, and so that started my journey into really understanding HIPAA and business associates and how all this worked. In the opener, you said I'm a HIPAA expert. I don't like to say that because there's so much about it I don't know about. But I'm very good within the security rule space and the things that I do, even around privacy rule. I try not to go into the other things like, code sets and, all this kind of stuff that's in there. Try to stay out of that part of it. But in my space, I'm pretty well versed in that with technology and MSPs and all that kind of stuff.
Welcome to the Risk Never Sleeps podcast, in which we learn about the people that are on the front lines delivering and protecting patient care. I'm Ed Gaudet, the host of our program, and today joining us is David Sims, managing partner at Security First IT. And also, you're a HIPAA expert. I noticed you've got a couple of, you got a podcast, Help Me with HIPAA, which is exciting. I'd love to learn more about that. And you've spent some time focusing on HIPAA, and I'm sure you still focus on HIPAA. So we'll get into that conversation. And you're in South Carolina.
Yes, that is correct.
Beautiful. I've got friends over in Oconee or Oconee? Oconee? It's like by a river. Okay. This is where I tell the producers to go ahead and edit that out. No, we'll keep it. All right. Let's start with your current. Tell our listeners a little bit about your current organization and your role.
Yeah, sure. So interesting when you read that off, managing partner. I've actually purchased the business in full as of a little over a year ago. So I'm now
congrats.
No longer the managing partner. Now everything stops here. But so the company is Security First IT, and it's one of the many things I have my hands involved in here lately. But we provide IT services and cybersecurity services for healthcare providers, and so we swim in the small practice waters, which is in and of itself very challenging, and I'm sure we'll probably get into that topic a lot. But that's what we do. The short version of the story is I've been doing this since 1998.
Ooh.
We have seen a bunch of iterations of our business. Started out as a storefront. We built computers and whoever walked in the door, we just built computers and did repair work. And then over the years, we've transitioned several times. And our newest iteration is a managed service provider in the healthcare space.
Nice. Sort of like Wozniak and Jobs, a little bit out of building components out of the garage.
Not quite as successful as that, but yeah.
Who is?
Yeah. I started out, cut my teeth on a Commodore 64. I'm aging myself there, but
oh, nice.
Yeah.
Were you an Atari gamer?
Yeah. I'm still a gamer. Yes, I play. Actually, my family couldn't afford an Atari, so I got an Odyssey 2, if you remember those.
I don't remember those. No, who made that?
Magnavox, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Jeez. What year do you remember the year those came out?
It would have been in the 80s. So the Atari 2600 was the thing to have.
Yeah.
Could not get my parents to pull the trigger on one. So I got the next best thing. And
do you remember ColecoVision?
I do. I never that and television. I remember that.
Yeah. Those things. Mm-hmm. Okay, I got to ask you, D&D. You ever play D&D?
Yeah.
All right. Oh, good. Geek out on some Dungeons and Dragons too on this.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this will be cool. All right. So how did you get into your current profession, and specifically why healthcare?
Oh gosh. I think I'm one of these guys that would I felt like I was good at computers and technology, and it kind of went that direction before I got into IT, or maybe before I started my business in IT. I had my hands in it since, again, when I started that Commodore 64 thing. That started my passion and love for technology, and I still remember the day I hooked it up and I pressed the key on the keyboard and it showed up on the screen, and I was amazed. Like, because I was a typewriter world person, I've been used to the hammers hitting the paper, and I'm like, how is this happening? This is crazy. And then, I'd spend an entire weekend coding, because I had like a magazine that would come in. If you guys remember what magazines look like,
Byte. Remember Byte magazine?
that might have been it. But I had a magazine that would come in every month, and it would have pages and pages of code that you could do, and I would code all this stuff, and I would hit run, and it would be 5 seconds of the thing walking across the screen.
That's cool.
And but that kind of started my love for computers, and I didn't go directly into computers. I actually, after college, first of all, I went into retail management, and I decided that was not something I really cared for. It was not necessarily the retail management side of it as much as it was maybe the company I worked for. Didn't like that too much. And I was young and I was looking for excitement. And so I decided to go into law enforcement.
Oh,
yeah. Talking about risk.
I was a customer of yours back then, probably.
So yeah, I had been around in law enforcement for a long time, actually, but because our local department had what was like a cadet program, so it's kind of like almost like a Boy Scouts for law enforcement. And so I was in that, from the age of probably 14, 15 years old. So I was around it for a long time, and then decided, you know what, I think I want to do this. And went that direction, went into law enforcement, and stayed in that for almost a decade. And then decided that I wanted to start my own business doing IT stuff. And at the most inopportune time in my life, I decided to quit my job and start a business. And that's kind of how the business got started.
Talk about risk never sleeps. You probably never slept.
I don't know that I still do, but the transition to healthcare was kind of interesting. It's one of those things where one of my clients was a small practice here in town, and they kept asking me, will you put me on some type of monthly plan where we're paying you every month instead of when we call you, which now is called, managed services. At the time, I was like, I don't even know how to do that. I don't know what to charge you. I don't know how that works. And then one day I was in the practice in the office there, and the lady says, do you know anything about HIPAA? And I'm like, I can't even spell it. Don't even know what it's for. It's got something to do with insurance, and it's all I know.
Most people can't still spell it.
Right, they can't. And she's like, well, you should probably go read up on it, because I've been hearing some things that are coming that might affect you. And I went and I pulled the law up and I started reading the page, and I think I might have got to page 2, and I was like, I don't understand any of this. I'll deal with this later. And eventually I kept hearing about, this was back in 2011-ish, 2012-ish, and I kept hearing about things that were coming. You're going to be a business associate if you're in IT kind of thing. And none of my vendors could tell me anything about it. Nobody knew in the IT space knew anything about this. The only people talking about it were people in the healthcare space. And I eventually stumbled across a lady by the name of Donna Grindle, whom you may know.
Oh, I know Donna. Yeah.
And so Donna was doing, like, the first time ever, she was doing some type of training course for business associates. And I jumped in on that and kind of learned, it opened my eyes up. I took the red pill, or whichever one it was. But, and so that started my journey into really understanding HIPAA and business associates and how all this worked. In the opener, you said I'm a HIPAA expert. I don't like to say that because there's so much about it I don't know about, but I'm very good within the security rule space and the things that I do, even around privacy rule. I try not to go into the other things like, code sets and, all this kind of stuff that's in there. Try to stay out of that part of it. But in my space, I'm pretty well versed in that with technology and MSPs and all that kind of stuff.
What's the hardest aspect of HIPAA in your experience from a provider's perspective, I guess? What's been your experience there?
I wouldn't necessarily say that HIPAA itself is hard. It's more about how people look at it. They tend to look at since HIPAA is so flexible, I like to say, people tend to look at that and say it's so ambiguous that we can't do anything. And I like to tell people, no, it's so flexible that you can meet it in multiple different ways. It actually works to your advantage, that it's not telling you very prescriptive ways to do things. And so people see it that way. The hardest part really is not necessarily in addressing HIPAA. It's more about addressing the practice's view of HIPAA or view of cybersecurity, and getting them to understand this is not about meeting some regulation. It's not about meeting a compliance standard. It's about reducing the risk to the organization and, more importantly, to the patients themselves.
Mm-hmm. Have you been through any audits with OCR or?
Knock on wood, I have not.
Oh,
I have not been through. I've been on the periphery of some, but not directly through any.
yeah, because I've always thought that one of the hardest aspects of HIPAA is, like you said, not so much, I don't want to say complying with it because that's not the right word, but not so much supporting it, not so much creating the right set of behaviors and implementing the right processes and roles, et cetera, internally. But if you do have an incident and you do go through the OCR audit, I've always found the OCR is very specific things they look for.
Mm-hmm.
And even though on one hand, it's very flexible, on the other hand, not if you go through an audit.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right.
And I've always wondered, like, why doesn't the OCR provide, and maybe they do at some level, that template that says, okay, if we come in, we want to see these things, and use that as a way to support or to put together a HIPAA plan ahead of that, right? What are your thoughts on that?
So one of the things that I do with clients, mostly, sometimes prospects, but we have a document that came from an OCR audit, and then we also have one that came from an investigation. And what we do is we go through that with clients to say, look, if we're not saying that you're going to be asked all these questions, but let's look at some of these questions. And usually it's, jaw dropping, like, oh, we got to have that. We've got to be able to pull stuff for that many years. And that's usually enough to get people's attention, because I'm like, look, you can do what you want to do. It's your business decision. But when something happens and they come up, they're going to send you something like this, and they're going to ask for this kind of information. And this is not the worst case scenario that I can find you. This is just an average investigation on something. And this is what they asked for. And most practices, especially small ones, have a lot of work ahead of them to try to even get close to that.
Yeah, I always feel like the house wins if there's an incident.
Yeah, the thing about OCR, and maybe I'm being optimistic when I say this, but I really feel like even when there's an incident, they're coming in and they're really trying to figure out, what are you doing that's correct, so that we can point that out. And then what are you not doing, so that we can help either put you on a corrective action plan or give you some technical assistance or whatever.
Yeah.
Because if you really look at it, the number of cases they are involved in versus how many we actually hear about that have settlements and things like that, it's a minute number that actually go far enough to where it makes the news, and we see settlements and we see things like that. It's just a very small amount.
Yeah. Although it keeps increasing every year, it feels like.
Yeah.
The trend's not going it's going the wrong way, right? It should be good.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is when you really look at it, not really for audits, but for security incidents, it's like whatever OCR does to you is probably going to pale in comparison to everything else around that.
Yeah, that's
damage to your brand, the legal fees. If you do get on a corrective action plan, that's going to cost more than any settlement amounts, most likely.
Do you think the threat of brand damage is real? Have you seen that actually happen? Like Change Healthcare. I mean, Anthem, like arguably like some of the largest breaches and incidents ever, right? That really affected them.
I think it matters more when you're smaller. If you're a local practice and everybody knows who you are in the area, then something like that happens. I think you could suffer brand damage more than, it was, United Healthcare. Well, what is United Healthcare? Most people didn't even know they were doing business with them. It's a big organization. They can even ride the wave of damage, even if there is any, because everybody has, long-term memory loss. They can remember right now. A year from now, they won't care. And so they'll just ride it out.
Yeah. And I think that's right. I think over time, there's an opportunity to build back that brand equity that you may have lost temporarily during an event such as the Change Health Care incident. But all right. Well, that was really interesting. Thank you for sharing your experience in HIPAA. I rarely get someone as experienced in HIPAA on the podcast, so I appreciate that. When you look at your business, obviously now as an owner, I'm sure your priorities have changed. What are your top 3 priorities over the next year or so?
Oh my gosh. It seems like they change every year for sure. Right now, we're really looking at the work that we've been doing like with 405D and now moving over to the Health Sector Coordinating Council, trying to really align what we're doing in our business to those goals. So when we look at like the 5-year strategic plan, where can we fit in? Like we don't do hospitals and all that, but we can come in and look at, for example, the strategy number 6, which has to do with, trying to get more small practices involved in cybersecurity, putting out more resources, more information, educating folks, and trying to get more buy-in. And so that's one area that I've started focusing on recently, and that's going to be our focus for at least the next year, doing that. Putting folks within frameworks, I like doing that so that I'm not coming in to a client and saying, this is David's best practices. You should be doing them. I'd rather have something to point to say, look, you're doing recognized security practices, and we can call it that because that's what the law calls it. And we can point to that, and we can say, look, if you're doing this, then now you can leverage public law 116.321, and that'll help you out if something happens. And it puts them in a better position. And I think it also speaks to a more mature cybersecurity stance within the organization, and they understand why they're doing things.
Yeah. Yeah. And for listeners that don't know what PL 116321 is, do you want to give sort of an overview description of it?
Yeah. The abbreviated description I'll give it is that if you are doing recognized security practices, and let's say an incident or an audit happens, and you can prove you've been doing those for a period of 12 months prior to the incident or audit, then OCR, it has to consider those things when they're doing that to hopefully give you a more favorable and faster determination.
Yeah, well said. It's like it's in between a safe harbor and a get out of jail free card.
Yeah. I try to stay away from safe harbor.
I know. Everyone tries to stay away from that.
Yeah. But it's better than nothing. And it's also one of these things like you should be doing this stuff anyway. And if you are, and you can prove it, it's finally some type of carrot rather than a stick. So take advantage of it.
Yeah. And I love how they call out NIST CSF, and they call out the health industry cybersecurity practices, HIPAA, right, as well. So as recognized. So yeah, I think there's enough there for people to leverage and to follow, like you said, not make up a foundational practice or a framework, but actually leverage what's there today, which everyone is using, which everyone is starting to use anyway in healthcare, but everyone inside healthcare and outside healthcare leverages as it relates to cybersecurity. So yeah, it's a really good call out.
It helps us too.
It helps us. Yeah, standardize on services and standardize on recommendations and things. Absolutely.
Right. Because, before frameworks, it was, you need to have this thing in place, and a client could easily say, well, you're just this is a money grab. I don't really need this. Why do you say I need this? And of course, if you got clients that trust you, you don't get that. But still, there could be that in the back of their mind. Like, do I really need this, or do I not? So then you can just point to these frameworks and say, these are the things you need to be doing in order to take advantage of not just the protections, so the other things that are wrapped around this. If you don't want to do it, that's fine, but you're not gonna meet these requirements.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And of course, we have the CPGs, right? And so what are your thoughts on, we opened up HIPAA before, before the administration changed. Now the administration has changed.
Yeah.
Do you think anything is going to happen there with the CPGs and with the opening up of HIPAA?
Um, yeah, if I'm looking into my crystal ball, I don't know that it's a high priority. I don't follow politics much at all, so I can't speak on kind of what are these things that are happening. But I do think there's got to be some changes just because of the fact that HIPAA was done way back before so many of these things we deal with these days are actually in play, and even something as small as marketing. Like when you look at how can a practice market and not get in trouble, like social media marketing and things like that. There's still areas where we don't even have a clear understanding of what we can do in certain areas. But then you throw in, the AI stuff that's coming out and everybody's jumping on bandwagons with that. And we have to have a change. I like what HSCC is doing around, asking for there to be something that is more fluid. So it's not, let's not come out with a updated security rule 2.0. Let's look at something else that we can change easier and just point to that and say, let's start following this. And then when those recommendations change, then we can change along with it. So
yeah,
I like what Greg and those are doing. And you're involved in that as well. So I like that approach. I hope that's what happens.
Yeah, I agree. Outside of healthcare and IT, what are you most passionate about? What would you be doing if you weren't doing this job?
What would I be doing? Probably consulting work. I like building small businesses, and I like going in and solving problems and things like that. So I feel like I have a good understanding of small business operations and of course, technology and things like that. So I'd probably be doing consulting. In my off time, I like playing around with all these AI tools that are out, and it seems like every day there's a new one, and I'm fascinated by it. And I'm fascinated by everything that they do. And, I'm currently trying to figure out agentic AI and how it can benefit me and my clients. And so I spend a lot of time doing all that.
What's the coolest thing you learned from AI you're so far?
The coolest thing.
And are you using it internally for any hacks, or are you using it to help you?
Use it every single day.
You do? Oh, cool.
And I think a lot of folks are using it to some degree, for different things, but I use it for marketing. I use it to create, it's gotten very good. Specifically ChatGPT has gotten very good at image creation and generation. And so creating images and things like that around content. What I don't like about it is I don't like that people are leaning too heavy on it for certain things. And so you start to see people use it to post content, for example, on LinkedIn, and then they're using it to reply on LinkedIn. And in some cases, it's probably bots that are doing it. And you start losing the whole human element of even being on social media.
I'm a writer by trade, sort of, I started out. I've always been a writer since I can remember. And I was a prolific user of the M dash, and now I can't use it anymore because if I do, it signals that maybe I didn't write it, maybe AI wrote it. So
right.
So now I'm constantly like writing things and removing M dashes from it. I'm going, I can't use that again. I got to think of something else to do.
Yeah. I think just for me, everybody has a different take on this probably, but I like to use it to help me do things faster. Especially if it's behind the scenes stuff. When it comes to creating content, I really wanted to have my voice. And I know you can train AI and all this kind of stuff, but I still like to be heavily involved in the wording of things and how they sound. I think I have a very unique way that I speak, and oftentimes I'm sarcastic and I'm funny with things. And even with something as serious as HIPAA and data breaches, I'm still cutting up about it. I'm the guy that's at the funeral cracking jokes. So
me too, David. Me too, unfortunately.
So I'm that guy. And if you listen to our podcast, with me and Donna help me with HIPAA, we're cutting up all the time about things. And sometimes we've gotten one complaint one time where a guy was, saying, I can't believe that you're cutting up about such a serious topic.
Gallows humor.
Yeah. But AI it's going to be difficult for AI to capture all that kind of stuff. And I'm not in that interested in it. I mean, even now on LinkedIn, I've had to start, when I connect with people, I start sending them a video message saying, hey, just want to let you know I'm not a bot. And,
That's cool.
I'll be following you and trying to comment on your stuff and all that. Because
even though a bot could send the same video message.
It can. Maybe I'll cross my eyes or something. Like, can AI do this? Can AI do this?
That's right. That's right. Exactly. Oh, awesome. So you go back in time. What would you tell your 20-year-old self?
Oh gosh, what would I tell my 20-year-old self? I would probably say, buy a lot of NVIDIA stock. That would be one thing.
No, but you're 20. Is NVIDIA around it when you're 20? I mean,
maybe 25.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, I think NVIDIA hit IPO in like 96 or something like that. So
okay.
Around a while.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Probably the other thing I'd say is she's not the one.
Oh man.
Yeah. Okay. That would have saved me a lot of time and energy and money.
Oh. All right. Okay. Well, those are interesting answers. I have to say, those are that's a first for the show. Well, let's go right into the next question. What's the riskiest thing you've ever done?
Well, I would have something to say about law enforcement because it's about got me hurt a number of times. But I would say, honestly, starting your own business, it's risky. Every single day, it doesn't stop. It's risky.
It's every day. Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? It's. You ever jump out of a plane, do anything physically risky?
I've been skydiving a few times.
Oh, nice. So you got a little bit of a risk gene.
Yeah, I used to be heavily in martial arts, and so I did a lot. And I got a wild hair when I was 36, I believe it was, and I went and just literally walked into a tough man contest, signed the papers, and said, "Let's get in the ring."
Really?
It's hilarious, but I actually did very well. I fought for 2 days. It was like, single elimination, and I made it all the way to the final 2, and ended up losing by decision to a guy.
Are you like in an octagon? Like, is it like
it was a boxing ring?
Oh, boxing. Okay.
Getting there and just they put up a ring and people just walk in and start fighting.
Damn.
There's safety measures in place and all that kind of stuff, but still, I think the guy I ended up fighting for first and second place was half my age. It was hilarious that I was, 36 and they're doing that, but it was fun. And, I'm not as much of a risk taker or thrill seeker as I used to be. As I get older, I'm, deciding to calm down a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Age certainly has a way of doing that to everybody. Although I just spent 10 days in Vegas watching 6 Grateful Dead shows. So,
oh my goodness.
I know. It took me, and it's taken me, today's like the first day I feel like myself again. And my wife's like, "What is wrong with you?" I'm like, "I don't know. Like, this trip has killed me." But, yeah, you're right. Age is definitely, it's a challenge. Share a fun fact about you that many people don't know.
A fun fact. So early in
I like it already, by the way.
Early in the 90s, I actually had a 15 minutes of fame, international fame.
Okay.
15 minutes international fame. I was interviewed on the BBC radio. And of all things, it was because as a police officer in the city that I was in, somehow it got over the pond that I was involved in chasing down an ostrich that had gotten loose from an ostrich farm.
That's great.
And they interviewed me on the BBC radio because of that.
Dude, that's awesome. So what was that like?
I mean, dude, I pull up and that's the biggest chicken I've ever seen. That thing was huge. But, I mean, it's one of those calls you get where you're like, what? Can you say that again? There's an ostrich loose on the 4-lane highway. Yes.
Oh, and so how did you wrestle it down? Like, was it physical too? Did it come at you?
No, No, I didn't dude, once I pulled up, got out of the car and I'm like, this thing's towering over me. I'm 6'3" and I'm like in the feet on that thing. I said, no, we'll just try to keep it quarantined until the owner gets here because there's nothing else I can do.
There was an owner of this thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been involved in like, okay, there's a cow that got loose or something like that. But I mean, an ostrich, that was the first, it was the one and only time that's happened. But yeah, I got international, 15 minutes of fame for that. That was crazy.
Did you ever eat ostrich?
Not that I know of, but I would.
It's delicious, actually.
Is it?
Yeah, it's good. It's red meat.
Good.
I might have to cut that out.
Yeah. Knowing that, I might would have took it down.
Yeah, you should have not called anybody. We have dinner now for three months.
Right.
That's great. What skills as an owner have you developed that at first didn't come easy that you feel like you're pretty proficient in?
I feel like all of them, honestly. I think like most small business owners, I was good at the craft. And so I was like, I could start a business. And I did. What you realize at some point is running a business is a skill in and of itself.
Yeah.
And, now I don't actually do much of the technical work anymore. My team does it. And, I spend all my time learning how to run a business, how to lead people, how to manage finances from a business. I mean, just all these other things that are involved in business ownership. And I really like it, honestly. I like those aspects of it because I think it's a challenge all the time to figure out which levers to pull. And
yeah,
I really enjoy, believe it or not, I enjoy the sales part of it, but not because of selling, because I don't look at it that way. I look at it as a problem solver. And
yeah, exactly.
And to sit down and say, you have these issues. Let's identify what those are. Let's identify the risk, and let's talk about what it's going to take to mitigate these risks. And then let's either move forward with it, or you can just accept it the way it is. It's your business decision, but I want to help you with that if you'll allow me. So that's what I enjoy.
Similarly, I love that customer engagement, customer interaction. That's the best, that's the best time spent. And also doing this podcast, I love to learn about interesting backgrounds and experiences and, hunting down ostriches.
Yeah, I know.
That's so great.
I actually had an epiphany not long ago, and I was talking to somebody about it, and because they were asking me, what is your why? Like, why cybersecurity? Why not go do something else? Because it's definitely not an easy place to be.
Right.
And I really thought about it there for a while, and I said, it's interesting that I went into law enforcement, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. No matter how dangerous it was, I enjoyed the fact that I was actually, serving and protecting people and the public. And now I'm doing it basically the same thing. I'm doing it from a digital standpoint. I'm still serving and I'm still protecting. And I think it just goes back to almost like a childhood view of what heroes are. They help those who are in trouble or who can't help themselves or are up against the odds and they can't beat them. And you just want to step in and be that guy that can do that for them.
That's interesting. Yeah. We're very similar. Did you read a lot of comic books as a kid?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I wonder if that's what it was. Cause me too. And I never really considered it that way, but I wonder if that's why I ended up where I ended up as well.
Yeah. Think about that.
Yeah, no, I think I am thinking about it. It's interesting because I'm always fascinated with where people end up on their journey because it is really a journey. I mean, there's some people that plan for it when they're young, but I've been a planner, but the things I found this letter I wrote myself, I guess in high school, and I found it the other day and I read it. I'm like, I did nothing that I said I was going to do in high school. I was going to be a senator. Of all things, like who the hell wants to be a senator? I did, obviously, in high school, but and I wonder if it was more that or more that I was in love with the movie Animal House, and that's what John Belushi became a senator. So.
Oh yeah, it's funny. I remember in 10th grade or 11th grade or something. I recall being in the English class, and the English teacher said something to me because I was always cutting up. and she said something, and I remember looking at her and saying, I don't need this. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. and
Great.
I know. And so I guess part of me at some point, even way back in high school, I wanted to be in business, and I wanted to do my own thing. I just didn't know what that looked like or what I would be doing. And I think even at the time, and we're talking back in the mid 80s, I don't think people even use that word very much, because none of your classmates, I mean, everybody's looking at me going, what is an entrepreneur? Is that like some type of French chef or something? I mean, what is that?
Exactly. That's right. That's right. Yeah, no, that's crazy. Yeah. So you heard that word along the way and you're like, oh, that's me. That's what I would do.
That's what I want to do. I don't want to work for them. I'm a terrible employee. I want to.
Yeah, that was short term for, I'm not going to take I'm not going to be follow rules from somebody else. I'm going to do my own thing. I'm not going to take,
But it played out in my life, because one of my top 5 strengths, if you ever did the Strength Finders assessment.
Yeah.
Number 1 is maximizer, which now I understand why it got me in so much trouble, because every organization I've ever been in, I'm looking for how can I improve those things. And almost every organization says we do it this way because we've always done it this way. And that rubs me the wrong way, because I'm literally looking at everything going, but it could be better if it was this way. Just consider it.
We could be seeing the same therapist.
So it seemed like every job I had,
I agree with you.
I would get in some type of, not necessarily get in trouble, but just people saying, just leave it alone.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Prove it.
Yeah. No. Yeah. No. I gotta write a book on that. What's the hardest lesson? We're gonna keep going if you have got time, because this is cool. What's the hardest lesson in your career?
The hardest lesson in my career, there could be several. One would be, don't take credit cards over the phone with people you don't know.
I love that.
That cost me a lot of money. I sold somebody some hardware that had a stolen credit card. That wasn't fun. I think the other thing is really learning how to lead is very different in business than I think I understood it or was even exposed to it, growing up. Even though I was in ROTC and all this, and
so was I.
Oh, look at there! See, you and I live in the same.
Oh man, that's crazy. What did you serve? Did you go through? And
I didn't. I actually went to enroll in or sign up for the Air Force, and
they
didn't need anybody in the Air Force.
Yeah.
So they actually talked me out of it, and they were like, you can go down the hall here to the Army or Marines or whatever. And I'm like, no, I want to be in Air Force. I mean, come on, Top Gun had just came out.
Oh man, me too. I'm a favorite movie, man.
So I didn't necessarily want to be in the Navy, but it's like, I want to fly something.
Yeah. That's so great.
I don't think I wouldn't have made a pilot anyway, because my math skills were terrible, but I was very good at video games. And so I figured, hey, I can do Microsoft Flight Simulator. I can do this.
Oh man, that's so great. That's so great. Yeah, no, very similar. We have very similar backgrounds and experiences. So, okay, now this will be the decider. If we'll see how closely we align on this question. You're on a desert island. You can bring 5 records with you.
Oh boy.
They can't be greatest hits. What would they be?
Oh, you messed me up then.
Yeah.
Can't be greatest hits. So, it'd have to be, it'd have to be one of the Eagles albums.
Okay.
That would have to be one for sure.
Hotel California.
Yeah. Probably Hotel California.
Okay.
Or I'd maybe even go newer and maybe try the Hell Freezes Over, since it's got a little bit of all the good ones in there.
Okay. All right.
I'd probably have to go. I mean, I'm an 80s kid, so I got to go back to the 80s and grab some Foreigner.
Nice. Foreigner. Yeah. Foreigner's good. Yeah.
I don't know, maybe some hip hop and maybe some Michael Jackson, something like that. Yeah. I mean, I don't have the Thriller album is, obviously better ones.
Thriller album's good. Yeah. Any core rock or
no
Grateful Dead? No, that's fine. That's fine. It's not for everybody.
Not that I don't like it, but yeah.
How about any core, any punk or rock or classic or jazz or anything like that?
Man, I like all kinds.
Country?
I mean, I'll listen to it. I don't follow much of it.
Mm-hmm.
So honestly, these days I don't follow too much music anymore. I tend to be a podcast listener and a
Really?
book listener and all that.
Oh,
Still listen to music, but I don't like when people mention some of the latest pop culture folks, and I'm like, I have no idea who that is.
how about movies?
Movies. If we're on a desert island, movies.
Yeah.
Well, I think the funniest one I would have to have on a desert island, just for, if nothing else, for inspiration, is Castaway.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I like that. That's where I thought you were going.
Yeah. But I mean, Top Gun. Who can that one? And the newest one, Maverick, was very
good, wasn't it? Yeah. Val Kilmer, God bless his soul, he was good.
Yeah. I like the Bourne Identity.
Yeah, me too. Those are good.
And Jason Bourne movies, Mission Impossible movies. Those are all great. So,
he's got a new one coming out.
Yeah, I think it's the second part of the other one. The other one kind of stopped.
Yeah.
Midstream and left us in a cliffhanger. So I didn't like that too much. But so it'd be interesting to see the other end of that one. But
yeah.
Hopefully I never find myself on a deserted island there.
Any recommendations on podcasts?
Help me with
other than, of course, our podcast, right?
Yeah. I mean, it really, I guess, depends on what you are interested in. I find myself jumping back and forth between podcasts. Sometimes I'm listening to like Darknet Diaries.
Oh, nice.
They're talking about, some of the things that are happening around cybersecurity and crazy stuff there. I like listening to The Game, which is a business podcast. I like listening to that. Sometimes I'm listening more to the people than the shows. So sometimes I'll follow the same person as they're jumping from show to show being interviewed. And so that Hidden Brain has been one I've been listening to for years, and I really love that one. If you've never heard,
Hidden Brain,
it's very good.
What is it about?
So it's put out by NPR, but it's they look at different things where they're studying human psychology and why people do what they do and how to improve yourself, personal development type stuff.
Oh, cool.
Very, very well done. And I really like that one. It's they hit a lot of different topics. It's not just psychology. It's not just things around personal development. It's just all over the place kind of stuff. Why we do what we do. But it's a very good one.
Yeah, that's a great question. Why do we do what we do?
Yes. Sometimes I can't answer that.
I know. Exactly. All right. Last question, David. What advice would you give to kids that are coming out of school, want to jump into cyber, want to jump into healthcare?
Oh, man. I would say, don't underestimate yourself. And because a lot of folks think that as fast as technology moves, it is very easy to think that you've missed the boat.
Yeah.
It's just, do what you got with what you got and just dive in and start learning as much as possible. I mean, nowadays, you and I grew up in an age where there wasn't YouTube, and you can learn so much now on your own, whereas you couldn't do that in the past.
Right.
Unless you had a library card, and that was kind of rough, but
I used the library excuse for other things. Going to the library, Mom. Wow, our son is so well read.
Yeah. Why do they serve alcohol at the library? You always smell like alcohol.
What is that? Is there a skunk around here? What's going on? All right. Well, good. Yeah, I love that. I love that advice. Any last thoughts before we end the show here? We've gone long, but I think you're a worthy podcast guest. So
I appreciate that, sir.
Yeah, this is fun.
Yeah, I mean, just if I have to come up with something off the cuff, I mean, since it's about risk never sleeps, you've really got to take everything and look at it from a risk perspective. I like to tell people that I do a risk assessment every time I open my mouth to tell my wife something. So it's involved in everything that you do.
That's so true. All right. That is a great way to end. Thank you so much, David, for joining the program today. This is Ed Gaudet from the Risk Never Sleeps podcast. And if you're on the front lines protecting patient safety and delivering patient care, remember to stay vigilant because risk never sleeps.